Cardi, number one realtor.
Yes.
Try different wines.
What's your favorite wine? Red or white? Hold on, first. Okay, all right.
I'm sophisticated.
A part of me was just like, y'all, we've been great. You're just now figuring it out, but we've been great. That's who we are. It's in our DNA.
To like do my Colossal Deadpool like impersonation, 1 or 2 moments, right? It's.
And I'm sitting there in my head going, I wonder if I can somehow sniff the traffic going from the armband. It's got to be talking to an API or something.
To the next cocktail, to the next conversation.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the C3 podcast known as Cocktails, Code, and Conversation. Your gracious host, David Lee, and we are back with another special guest because you guys all know by now, I say all my guests are special because they are in their own way. They're very special. So our special guest today, I'm going to let her introduce herself to everybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shamir Brown.
Okay, y'all. So she's nervous. So we're going to work with her. We're going to walk her through it. But y'all know, so y'all been getting on me for the longest time because it's Cocktails, Code, and Conversation. Y'all know when it started, it's supposed to be an in-person podcast, a certain setup. When it's virtual. So sometimes I don't have a cocktail. But it's time. We got the wine. So we good. We got our, it's not cocktail, but it's still alcohol, people. Y'all know what it is. So we're gonna be sipping, we're gonna be talking, we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna help Shamir get comfortable and we're just gonna talk. We're gonna talk about it.
Okay.
All right. So Shamir, let's start by just your background. Like, what do you do now and kind of how you got into the field that you're in?
Sure. So what I do now, I work for Salesforce. My official title is Sales Programs Manager. And pretty much I project manage sales operations in the form of content. And that could be customer slides, case studies, films, social media, whatever the sales team needs in order to seal the deal from a customer reference standpoint is what I do. Right now, I cover public sector, specifically in the area of the federal and civilian business. I actually started off in EMEA and built that business from the ground up. So I consider this a bit of a promotion to build another business for Salesforce. So that is what I do now. How did I get here? It is a long, long journey. My background is in chemistry, chemical engineering. I started off in pharma. I worked as a validation specialist for Abbott Laboratories for 3 years. And I really just thought I would be a researcher up until the economy crashed about 2008, 2009. And it forced me to start over. I remember going to work one day and an entire department was laid off. And then the next day, the Puerto Rican plant was closed. And slowly, it's almost you see the train approaching you, but you really don't know how to move.
Right.
So I knew it was a matter of time before it came to my department. And of course, I was laid off, but not before my manager and as well as her manager gave me some options. They said, hey, Shamir, you're going through some changes, which was an understatement. But what you could do is go to grad school and just lay low. And maybe when you get out of grad school, things will change. The tide will shift, and it'll just be a better economic climate for everyone all the way around. And so that's what I did. They wrote my recommendations for grad school, and that was my segue into tech. I got my MBA in marketing and operations, just leveraging my engineering background. And I was recruited by Oracle. And it was like, hey, we have this new product. It's called Agile Product Lifecycle Management. Because you have a pharma background, you know the product life cycle and how long that takes, FDA regulations. I think you would be a great solutions architect. And that is where it all begins.
Okay. So there we go. Chemistry into tech.
Yeah.
You know, it's always interesting talking to people like what I love about the tech industry, right? And I think people, I try and be a big advocate about, and I think people are starting to learn is that there's so many entryways into it, right? And we're now learning that just because it's tech, right? People used to automatically think like coding. I gotta, go program something like that. But there's so many different parts of tech that you can kind of get into and, kind of make your niche and carve out. And so I tell everybody like it's a big little industry, right? Coming into tech, there's so many different things you to do. And I always, people ask me like, how do I get into tech? I was like, there's a million different ways. So we first got to figure out what it is you like to do, right? And that's what I tell people.
Exactly.
Find out what you like to do, find out what you're good at, because more than likely those skills will convert to something over in tech. And it's often the things that people don't think about. So that's pretty awesome. So from there to Oracle. And so we're gonna jump back to grad school, because you went to grad school in the wonder. I'm gonna be nice because the Champaign people gonna come out.
Please be nice, because
So
yeah.
School, University of Illinois in Champaign, Illinois. Now, having family from the go and some that stays in Champaign that is still there to this day, I done been there. Whoo! It's interesting. So, talk a little bit about what that experience was like being in Champaign and what that was like.
So I would like to start by saying, like, my experience in Champaign is completely different. I only went to the University of Illinois for grad school. So that is a different experience in itself. And you also got to remember, when I started grad school, I was 27, 28 years old. I had work experience. And so my perspective of life was different than that of someone starting college at like 17 and 18. And it's just not the same. Also, we had grad school living. So that was off campus. It was like an apartment. So I'm just giving you a little bit of background to kind of how my experience may have differed from someone that actually went to undergrad, because people that went to undergrad are very passionate about U of I. I mean, they bleed orange and blue. So no disrespect to that. But coming in as a grad student, it was a completely unique experience for me. I'm used to being a minority among minorities.
Right.
Also, I was the only Black woman in that class at the University of Illinois 2012. That was a full-time MBA. So usually when you're in school, you look for your community and your people and where you belong. I had a really difficult time finding where I belonged. So I guess I'm saying this to say that I didn't feel like I belonged with any particular group. I think what worked in my favor is I'm a licensed cosmetologist. And like I said, I was laid off from corporate to get into, and that was my segue into grad school. So I started doing hair. That was the way I paid for like books and basic utilities. I worked at JCPenney Salon in Champaign-Urbana. So I built a community within what we would call the shop. I shout out to Shaka Hill. I don't know if we could call names, but she was the other Black stylist in the salon, and she just looked out for me like a big sister. So I had Shaka in that space. But in terms of school, I really struggled, especially with group projects. It was really hard finding a group that I wanted to work with, where we could have complementary like personalities. I didn't grow up around a lot of white people. And when I was in corporate, of course, I was predominantly white. Again, I was one of 2 Black women in my department at Abbott Laboratories. But work relationships are a little bit different, especially when you come from a science background.
Right.
You don't really need a group when you're working like in a lab, or more so in that plant environment. But when you're working more in like testing and lab, like, yes, there's a team, but it's just different. I don't really need the entire group per se, us working as a collective to get it done. Yeah, coming from science, it was just, I can work with my head down, get it done, and let's be done.
Right.
Whereas grad school, we need each other to graduate. One thing that did work in my favor is reaching all the way back to undergrad. I did polymer research at Ohio State, and that was about 2003, 2004. And I had a roommate named Amelia. Now let's fast forward to 2020, and I have not seen Amelia since we did our polymer research. You think that chapter is closed. She was the first person I saw orientation day at grad school.
Wow.
In 2010. So, and she still sends me Christmas cards, and I know what's going on with her, and she celebrates my birthday when she's in Chicago. So be nice to everybody is the moral of the story. Because from us having that partnership and us being roommates doing polymer research, both of us thought we would be researchers and get PhDs, and then to find both of us again in a completely separate program, leaning on each other. It's just amazing how people make full circles.
Right.
And having that relationship really helped. Once I let my guard down, there were like three guys in my class. They were from Chicago. We had the conversation that I'm from Chicago. So, now we look out for each other. But it was definitely a process. I had no real social life because I just didn't really feel like I fit. So I'm very appreciative to all my friends that came from Chicago to Champaign to visit me. Thankful for all my clients that looked out for me and invited me to different events in Champaign. The guys that I'm talking about from Chicago, after I graduated from grad school, I started a Black MBA brunch. And now, like, it's me and all nine of them. And then they begin to invite other people. And now they're getting married, and we meet and we talk investments and really increasing the Black dollar. And so we're doing a lot, but it took a while to get
Right.
there. And so I'm glad I stuck with it, because after that first semester, I was like, I don't think Mama, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Because I don't have any friends. Like, I don't know. But I was there for a reason. And
Absolutely.
I I knew that if I didn't finish, like, what do I show for it? I mean, the economy really didn't right size until about 2012. When you think about that timeline and
Mhm.
how things begin to shift, by the time I graduated, Abbott ended up dissolving into two separate companies. Like, things, pharma changed, healthcare changed. So I really needed that time for essentially the smoke to clear. So shout out to my Black MBA brunch crew. Thankful for Amelia, who still looks out for me to today. I feel like maybe because it was the hardest to get my footing there, that the relationships that I did walk away with have so much longevity to them. Like, for us to still be in communication and talk and still be connected to this day, I think because I had to work so hard and come through the fire to be intentional about networking, now I have something tangible, and I'm watching these people evolve, get married, grow, have children, and I can look back and remember when we just started off, just starting out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you touch on a subject that it's I find myself talking more and more about. It's just that power of relationships and networking, right? I think it's single handedly, I can say in my life, in my career, the one skill that has probably been the most beneficial out of everything else I know, right? My computer science degree, all the stuff that I've learned, I was like, that's all great, but the ability to network and develop those relationships, because it is so vital as you kind of move throughout your career, especially for people of color, because we're usually not in those rooms. Actually, let's
Right.
we're not in those rooms, right? It's very few of us there, and so it's those connections that kind of help us get through. Because I was explaining some brothers I met last week at a grand opening event. It's one of them again asked me how to get into cybersecurity tech, and I was like, look, he's like, so do I just go apply? Do I need internships? I was like, no, so
Hmm.
relationships. That's what you need. Or I was like,
Yeah.
because whatever opportunity you find, right? You can go apply for it, but that's great. I was like, well, what you really want to do is have the relationships between somebody or a manager or somebody inside, and then go through that process. And then they say, okay, go apply. So just so we have it in the system, like that's just how it works, right? Right, wrong,
Right.
different, right? I'm the type of person that's like, look, it doesn't matter. It matters in the grand scheme of things whether it's right or wrong, but in reality, it's like right, wrong, or indifferent. This is the way it is, right? So you
Yeah.
move this way to work with the system, and then right for those of us that are bold enough, then you work on the other path to make sure that it changes for the people behind you, right?
Yes, and I do want to leverage that conversation, because that's exactly how I got into Salesforce. And pretty much how I got into Salesforce is I spent some time in DC. It was during the pandemic, 2020. We all know that was crazy for everybody. Again, I was looking for a place to just lay low. They had the anniversary of the March on Washington, August of 2020. Like, I think it was like the 28th. I was there for 30 days. My brother was like, hey, do you have to go back to Chicago? What do you have to go back to right now? And I was like, I really don't have anything to go back to right now. So I'm going to post up. But in the midst of me posting up, he was like, hey, why don't you just start applying for jobs, see if you can find anything in the DMV area. And I was like, great. He said, I introduced you to my frat brother that's familiar. He was a part of a tech company. And honestly, I told him he introduced us via LinkedIn. And I messaged him and was like, hey, I'm a project manager. I have an engineering background. I've been in tech. I just gave him the whole spiel
Right.
on who I am. He was like, look, I'm out of town, but I'm going to introduce you to this person. His name is Joseph. And I told Joseph the same spiel. Joseph was like, look, I'm in finance. I'm not affiliated with tech in any way. He's like, but I did just attend an open forum with Salesforce. And it was a young lady on that forum by the name of Jasmine. And she encouraged people to reach out to her that are looking for work. I'm going to connect you with Jasmine. So it went literally from my brother to his frat brother that was out of the country. And then him introducing me to Joseph. And then Joseph introducing me to Jasmine. Essentially, it was the Underground Railroad of technology to get me into Salesforce. And I connected with Jasmine. We did like a virtual chat, virtual coffee. And she was like, you know what? I think you'd be a great fit for this company. And she was like, look for a job that you want, put me down as a reference. And I did that. And she referred me. And then it took me the 30 days that I was in DC was 30 days of meeting the hiring manager and her team and so on and so forth. And that ended with me getting my job. And after I got my job, of course, you got to go back through everyone that kind of got you there.
Right.
And they was like, well, congratulations. Now you're a part of the network. And now I will send people to you. And now you have to help someone else.
Right.
And it was almost like a secret, like, congratulations. Now you're a part of the network. Click. And I'm like, okay, well, okay.
Right.
And so I've been very diligent about presenting myself as a reference, not just to people of color, because I want it to be deeper than me just helping another Black person, but there's a lot of qualified people of color, men, women, or indifferent, that just need a chance.
Yes.
And I like how the DC network in particular, they didn't make it deep. They didn't pledge me or haze. They didn't do any of those things to help me. They met me, they saw the potential, they saw the experience, and they rallied behind me. And I've been trying to do that for someone else. I've referred people, they got interviews, but haven't got anyone hired yet. But I always try to present myself, make myself accessible, because I feel like, especially in the Black community, I don't feel like we do enough to pull each other up. And so now that I'm at Salesforce, I'm mindful of my emotional intelligence and how I present myself. And I make sure that I'm always professional, no matter what the circumstance is. And sometimes it's hard because I'm a double minority in tech, and people try you.
Yeah.
But I keep that in mind because I want the Shamir Brown name and brand to be strong enough to help someone else, so that when they say, now you're a part of the network, now you're a part of the Underground Railroad, like now that actually means something.
Yeah.
And that I'm a value add to the pipeline that kind of got me in the door.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break real quick. Got to pay some bills. And then we're going to come back. I want to talk about and dig into just kind of what your experience has been like in tech, right? Especially with some of them challenges sometimes, right? Being a double minority, but also some of the good things that you've seen in tech. We always want to paint the picture that let's tell the real. There's good and bad to all of it. So quick break and we'll be right back. Okay.
Hey, what's up, Street League Squad? Did you know that you can leave comments and engage directly with this podcast episode? In fact, you can do that with any podcast episode of the C3 Squad by logging into ebonyascent.com, going to your favorite podcast and leaving comments. And you can do that with any content on the Ebony Ascent platform. So check it out. First of all, you got to subscribe. And I know you've already did that. Once you subscribe, you're going to sign in. It's real simple. Enter your email address and they'll send you a magic link to log into the platform. Boom. Once you've logged in, now you're good to go. And you'll know you're logged in. You got this little icon there, but let's go over to the C3 podcast, click on whichever episode you like to interact with. Let's say it's this one with John Logan, and leave a comment. You can be the first one to leave a comment. Let me know what you liked about it. If you really just enjoyed the conversation with John or more things that you want to hear. And again, once you're logged in, you can do this across any of the content we have on the Ebony Ascent platform. Check it out. Until next time, let's get back to the pod.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Back with Shamir, and we're going to talk about what life has been like in tech, right? So I know a lot of people sometimes ask, like, I want to get into tech. What's it like if I come from a different field? So just talk about like what your experience has been like since transitioning to tech, you know, both the good and the bad.
Wow. I guess I'm really kind of torn about how deep to get into the bad, because tech was a lot for me. We talked a little bit about networking. I didn't learn how to network until after grad school. So I came in with a different personality type, and it took a while for me to get comfortable in my skin. It took a while for me to know who I am. But corporate is not the best place to learn who you are. You need to come in with a little bit of a sense of self. And I came in with a lot of like low self-esteem. Yes, I knew I was smart. I'm a WashU engineer. Like it, I mean, hey,
Right.
but I still was trying to get my footing, especially when in corporate. And I didn't know how to play the game. I feel like as Black people, we are almost raised at a disservice. Like I have a Jamaican mother. You don't need friends. It don't matter if people like you. You do your work, you focus, and you go home. That
Right.
is not true in
Right.
corporate America. You need people to like you. If you come in and don't speak to people in the morning, they think you have an attitude. Like I wasn't used to that. I
Right.
come in, I would have my headphones on. You're trying to get in the zone so you can get through your day, and seeing how people took things like that personally. And it wasn't just come to work and do your job. It was necessary to go to those happy hours and build relationships, because when you do not, you get people the space to create a narrative for you. And usually that narrative is not positive. And so being in corporate, especially in tech, in rooms where 90% of my career, I am the only Black person in the room, people come with their own preconceived notions about why you are there.
Right.
I've been in rooms where people will talk over me and not listen to what I had to say, or I'll say an idea and then somebody else says it and it's received differently. So I had a lot of growing pains. I've heard you're aggressive and you're too loud, and you don't seem friendly, or you're intimidating. I've heard all of those things. I think most Black women in corporate America, I think we share that. And it sounds an alarm when people say, oh, that came off aggressive. Like to me, that's just calling me out my name, because I
Right.
feel like that is a label that so many get placed on them, especially in that corporate setting. So I don't know if how I got through those times would even be beneficial, but I would encourage any person, especially women of color, men of color, to get you a mentor. I came from Chicago. I'm from the West Side. I'm a little, I have a loud Jamaican family. I can honestly say I was a little rough around the edges. When I came out as an engineer, it wasn't so political.
Right.
It wasn't so polished. Engineering is a little bit more informal. It comes with a little bit of lab work. You have your stations. It's just a different culture, different environment. Corporate, especially technology, depending on the company that you come through, is a little bit more button up. So when I was at Oracle was suit and tie. Like you had to be suit and tie. There was no grace with that. I had to learn how to put on makeup. I started off as a solution architect. So for those that don't know, that's like pre-sales. I did sales support. So I was customer facing, and they didn't have a lot of grace when it came to women. And I've had women, not necessarily women of color, but women at the company tell me how to conduct myself and how to give me kind of the underground of how formal that culture was. And if you want to survive here, this is how you have to look. If you want to survive here, make sure your tone, watch your tone. I hate watch your tone. Make sure you speak a little softer. And essentially, these are not things that are not initially innate to me. Like it's, I'm used to being bold and living out loud and being comfortable and being able to engage. I think I'm funny and a lot of fun. That was not the place to be that person. And then segueing into other companies such as I worked for Autodesk and Career Builder. And as I shifted through different technology companies, the culture changes. So I went from being real formal and really button up. And then by the time I ended up at Career Builder and doing project management and doing implementation. So I went from selling to now doing implementation. It was a little bit more relaxed. And now that I'm at Salesforce, I come in, I had on my faux locks and swinging. I had box braids. They I want you to be comfortably you.
Right.
And to come from a place, it's like two polar opposites of the extremes. I want my team to look like the rainbow. I want all people. I don't want it to be homogenous. Right now, marketing and product development and implementation is everybody looks the same because they hire their friends and people that look like them. That's not going to happen with me because I'm very intentional and mindful, again, of strengthening that pipeline. But it was definitely a journey coming from 22 inches rimming to now me just being lighthearted and being myself. If I can give any advice when you are applying for companies, especially in the tech space, look for people of color in leadership because it is a mirror and a reflection of your ability to progress and to grow. And I hate to make blanket and general statements.
Right.
But at Salesforce, there are people of color in the CX, and there are a lot of managers that are Black, white, Asian. It covers the spectrum. And honestly, now that I'm looking to be promoted, it was another manager, a VP of a different team who is Asian American woman who was like, oh, you want to be promoted? I'm going to teach you how to build a case for yourself. So when it's time for you to be promoted, now you can check the box. So it took her to see me and was like, you know what, I'm going to help you because I know of the nuances and the politics. It's not that you're going to have to deal with everybody. It's like the Black church. Every church got something. Every church got drama. But what drama can you deal with, right? And for me, Salesforce is not perfect, but seeing people that look like me in leadership and then people who don't even look like me, but identify the areas of growth and challenge and still want to invest in me and help me along my journey there. It means so much because I remember being in a place and feeling unseen and I was unheard and I was pretty much put in a corner and I was just checking a box, right? Just to say there was somebody of color here. So there are still things that I do that I've learned, but I feel like the plus side, I'm most comfortable where I am now. They have resources and things in place for people of color. So they have more kind of support. They have it built into the initiative. I can tell a joke and people would laugh. I can be myself. The best thing is probably the most money I've ever made because tech pays. They do.
There it is.
They do. Yeah.
But I appreciate like what you said, right? Because what I like to do is make sure that the real picture is getting painted out there, right? We have a lot of kind of disinformation, right? When people just like, oh, come to tech, get it back, come to tech, do this, whatever. I'm not, yes, like you can make a lot of money in tech. Absolutely. You will probably make the most money you've ever made. You probably make the most money in your family, yada, 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 right? All that's there. But the reason why I love going into like the real of it, right? And kind of really sometimes the uncomfortable is because it gets to the reality of what you walk into, right? So I want people to understand it's like, yes, you can come in. Many times you are going to be the only person in the room, right? Sometimes you do have to, taper like who you are a little bit based on the culture, right? And we may not like to hear that. I don't think it's right. I think it should change. I was like, but it goes back to my previous statement. There's the way things are now and the way you have to play the system, and then what you can do to change it, right? But you can't change it from the outside. So you can see here, it's like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to change it. I want to wear my hair the way I want to do. Okay, cool. But you're going to do that from the outside. So guess what's never going to change? How it currently works because you're not in the game.
Right.
So you have to get into the game, Like walk your line, figure out what it is. And then the thing that I like to get across and tell people is that you play the game, and then you start to, it's just like chess, right? You start to play your strategy moves and get yourself into a position of power or around people that have power. And now when you have a say, you can start to do things. So to your point about like, you want to go and get to director. So then that way you'll be in a position to influence and make sure that the teams look a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Again, you can't do any of that if you're not in the game to begin with. So you have to realize, what are the rules of the game so I can play it? Right? How do I get good at it? And now that I'm good at it, now I can start making influence and doing different things the other way. But this is the real, right? This is real. And why, I'm so adamant and passionate about talking to people of color about what it's like being in this field, right? Like some things aren't going to agree with you. I remember when I came out, so I cut my hair at the end of 2020. I had dreadlocks like literally down to my back. And I had been growing them out since I was in college. So I remember coming out and my mom was like, so you think you'll be able to get a job with your hair? And I'm just like, now I went to HBCU. So I'm around us all day. So I'm like, what you talking about? Of course I'm gonna be able to get it. I'm not thinking anything of it. So I'm going on these interviews, stuff like that. Interviews are going well. And I had one interview where they asked me like about my hair. I can't remember exactly what they said, but they were trying to beat around the bush of whether or not I would cut my hair or not.
Yeah.
And I just said, let me ask you this. You're hiring me. I'm coming out of computer science. I'm gonna be a software engineer. You're hiring me for a software engineer. Am I going to be coding or is my hair going to be coding?
You said that.
Yeah. Now, so let me give you some context. I ain't never got a problem like saying what I want to say. That's not that hasn't always been a good thing. So people who are listening to this, if you're younger, look, don't do
that.
Like, you learn really quickly. You can only get away with that in certain areas, right? But I've always been that way, right? And I learned how to taper that back and do it at the right times and things like I said. But yeah, that was a question that I asked back because I was just like this, it was me trying to figure out, well, what kind of culture, what kind of environment is this going to be? Yeah. If this is the standards you guys have, this is probably not a company I want to work for. Right. And so I ended up with a different kind. I don't even remember what that company was. I ended up going to Lockheed Martin, all this stuff or whatever. So anyway, I had my hair like for most of my career. It was so funny, like to the point when I cut it, people were just like, oh my God, like they didn't even, I realized that I had my hair for 20 years. So there was people that I had known that had never, that all they knew was me with my hair. But it's like, part of that, for people of color kind of entering in, when you're looking at environments, especially in tech, the cultures can be very cliquey. The cultures can be very, you find like the button-up business cultures. Like Oracle had that culture, and they're known for that because Oracle was an older company, right? Yes. Some of the newer companies, some of them, modern companies, we've progressed as a society, and it's more laid back because we realize like this is technology, this is software. We can do it from whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, why the hell am I having my software engineers dress up in suits or solutions? Like it don't matter. Like go get the software done, right? And so, but you kind of have to go through that change, right? And so. What I tell people is like, never be afraid to interview like who you're going to, right? Interview the company, find out about their culture. I love your point of like, look at the leadership. If you don't see diversity at the leadership, like that's going to tell you something, right? And test their culture. And I love your analogy to the church. Test a company's culture like you would test going to a church. Go to the service, sit down and be like, okay, what do I like? What do I like? What works for me?
Right, exactly.
If I need a banging choir and you like, this choir is then from you. You need to figure what that is for your corporate life, right? What do you look for? And sometimes it can be a little intimidating, but that leads to, and I love hearing your journey of as you saw like the different cultures of different companies, and it leads to you finding a place where you feel like you can be you. And it is getting better, but it needs a lot of work to where people are learning how to create these cultures where everybody can kind of be themselves. And it's really the newer companies that are doing that, but some of the older and bigger companies are trying to get there. There's a lot of work that needs to be there, but that's important, right? And you can ask those questions in your interview, right? What do you got? What kind of activities do you guys have? Like, what would you say your culture is like? Right. And one question that I love to ask is, does your organization build leaders or do you hire leaders? Right? Because that tells you right now their philosophy of how they think. I'll tell you right now, if you ask that question and they pause for like 30 seconds, get the hell out. They don't know. They don't know, right? Like, right. That should come off, and that should tell you like how much they believe in their people, how much they believe in developing people, and that's something that you want to find. And so I appreciate you just kind of sharing your story over there, because again, I want people to see the both of good and the bad, right? And look, it is. the good side, I think, like what I love about it, and I will get your opinion. Like what I love about tech is like the amazing problems that you get a chance to solve. Like the
Mhm.
stuff that you look at and it's just like, wow, this is super dope. Like you could be like, you get customers that come up with these crazy solutions. You're like, man, how are we gonna fix this? And then all of a sudden, it's like you're putting stuff together. You see all the things together, and you can find some really good collaborative teams, and it's fun. So let's talk about that side. Let's say what's the funnest memory you have that you've had in tech?
The funnest memory that I've had.
Yes, funnest is a word for all you grammar people. If it ain't, oh well.
Funnest. I feel like I'm having a lot of fun now. When I first started off at Salesforce, I covered EMEA. And because I covered EMEA, that gave me a lot of opportunities to work with teams all over the world. I have an Italian team in France and Germany, and their cultural differences, their problems are interesting, the politics, like when you're a solution driven person, you're always looking for a problem to solve. And I feel like a lot of engineers, we're solution driven. So whether it's a domestic problem or an international problem, we just
Right.
want to be in the mix. But the ability to work with all those teams across language barriers, I tried to learn how to say good morning in all of the languages of the countries that I worked with, and just try to just be open to new ideas, because we all come in with our different backgrounds, but we had a common goal, and our common goal was to create content for each region, so those teams are empowered to sell. That's what we do. We empower our sales team to be successful, and that drives revenue. So it's just a domino effect, and being able to align across water, across time zones,
Right.
amazing. I was able to cover a project in Ireland. So I was in Ireland for a little bit, and my project was featured at Dreamforce. We just had a customer kickoff call because our fiscal year just started. They featured my content again, and just on the list of countries to go to, Ireland was not on my list. It was just, it's a big Irish community in Chicago. I was just like, I'm good. We do it way big for St. Patrick's Day, but it was
Yeah.
just not on my radar as a place to go. And I went to Ireland, and I learned how diverse Ireland is. I led a team there. They believed in me enough that when I went to Ireland, wasn't just a fly on the wall. I led that team. I have that. It is my project. I'm glad that they trusted me to lead. And it really, what I learned the most is it doesn't matter what country you're from. We all want to be heard. We want to be listened to. We want to be
Right.
respected. That does not change. We want to feel important. And if you present yourself as friendly and open, as a collaborative partner, I love saying that I am a collaborative partner wherever you are. The opportunities are vast. And so that I'm probably had the most fun like last year working with everybody and building that business from the ground up. And yeah, now I'm in federal. I don't know if I'll get to travel and see everybody. I still have a lot of lasting relationships. I probably can go to Germany and hit up Marcus. And he's like, "Hey, you can stay with me and my family," or go to
Yeah.
Italy and partner with that team, because now we've been in the trenches together
Yeah.
and we're partnered, and it doesn't matter that
Yeah.
I'm Jamaican from Chicago. Like,
No.
we're here together, and we're doing great work. So
Look, man, shout out to Germans in Germany. And I can't recall his name right now, but I had a project in Germany. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. And like this changed my whole perspective of Germany. This guy came, he was like, he emailed me, he's like, when do you get in? And I got in the night before. I got in, but he thought I came in. I got in on Thursday. He thought I came in on Friday. He's like, okay, well, let me know when you get in. Let me know what the hotel is. This man came, picked me up, took me to his home with his wife and son, right? His wife is cooking like everything, like, and she was like, oh my God, welcome. And they made this, and they made some German food. And then she said, well, I made a little bit of German food, a little bit of American food, because I didn't. And I'm just like I'm over there for 3-4 hours. This man like had just met me like 20 minutes ago. He picked me up, took me to his house. We're eating. I'm laughing with his son. His son's asking like, do everybody carry guns in the U.S.? Because it seems like and it's like the most amazing conversation. And so I was there. I was there for a week and a half. Every day, right? Germans always on time. Every day at 7:14, not 7:15, not 7:13, 7:14. He was outside my hotel, picked me up, He was like, "Did you get breakfast?" I mean, it was just the most wonderful time. And my whole time at that company, like we would still contact each other. He would see me, and I was just like, it. I was so thankful for that because I was like, that was my first time actually. I had been international for like a day, like during the trip or something like that. But that was my first time, like, I'm living here for like a week, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know anybody. And so he just made it upon himself to make sure that I was good and like go here, go there, whatever. And I think what it did was it made me more open, right? And just connecting with the rest of the German population there. And I was like, this is great. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here, right? And so it is. I'm glad you mentioned that with the international vibe. I think that's one of the things that I tell people that is an advantage of tech, because especially now you can kind of work wherever and you can connect wherever, like the connections and things that you will be able to do and build relationships with people in different countries. And you'll understand, like, to your point about solving solutions, right? It's so interesting. Like, you never know how narrow your perspective is until you have somebody. Like, you work on an international project, and then it's like, okay, we're trying to solve this. And it's like, wow, well, you guys have this regulation, or this is a little different. And so it's like,
Yes.
so now it's like, man. And so for engineers who we love solving problems, right? It's exciting. It's like, oh man, like, okay, we got to add this piece to it. So, yeah, super dope. So for those of you listening, look, like tech, I would wrap it up like this. Tech is fun. It is definitely challenging if you're a minority. No question about it, but it's getting better. We have more of us coming in there. And, make sure you reach out, like, start working on your network, connect to people, right? You're going to have to develop some of those people skills, right? They come in handy like so much.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of engineers, that's hard, right? I was always the unicorn engineer, right? I had an engineer in mind, but I could always people person. I could talk to whatever. Like, I'm that dude who, like, put me in a room full of strangers. I'm leaving with 3 friends. Like, so I was like, I don't know you, but I got to ride. Somebody dropped me off. Like, we partying tonight. It's just, I've always been that way, but I know a lot of people like it. That's hard. So,
yeah.
All right. So we're coming up on the end of our time. So we're going to get to our famous last segment that is called.
Am I going to need a drink?
You might need a drink. It's called. I still got like a couple more sips. We call this the last sip. And for this segment, I ask everybody this question, and I usually try not to prep them because I want the answer in the moment. The question is, you ready?
Sure. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh my goodness. What do I want my legacy to be? Wow. So I thought a lot about this because last year I did a Eat, Pray, Love sabbatical. I did a solo trip. And like I said, it took a while for me to get out of my shell, but now you can drop me off in the desert and I can build an oasis. Like that's how I am now. What I would like my legacy to be, and I think about this a lot because I don't have any kids and I'm not married. And so I think you are forced to think about, like, what is my leave behind? And what I want people to think about when they think about Shamir is to live boldly, live freely. I have had an amazing journey coming from engineering, going through tech, going through the leaps and bounds of everything that contains and consists of. But at the end of the day, just remaining true to who I am, living boldly, and, walking into any room and saying, yes, this is Shamir, this is who I am, and being okay that it don't look like everybody else.
Right.
And being okay that I don't sound like everybody else, and just owning my moment. And so that is kind of how I try to live boldly and freely, so that people can say it's okay for them to just be their authentic selves, no matter where they are, and live the life that they choose. We have a choice. Yeah, you have a choice. So for your life to be whatever you want it to be, and to do that freely. And I feel like so much in life we think things happen and we just kind of allow things to happen, but you can select whether or not you're going to smile today or you're going to have joy today. You can choose to get up and get dressed and comb your hair, or you can choose to sit on the couch and be a bum and watch Netflix. You can choose to go out. You don't have to look on Instagram and look at people traveling in their lives. You can choose to save your money and travel too. You can have that life too, with no limits and no restrictions. But it's really about your choices. And I can hear some people saying, like, I grew up this way or I grew up that way. But I really feel like we have more power than we think we do.
Absolutely.
And life doesn't just have to happen or just have to pass us by. We can make it what we want to be. So that is my legacy. That's my Iyanla moment. I don't know. I hope it was good. I hope that's what you were looking for, because that's all I can think of.
It's never so. I always ask that question because it's what you want your legacy to be, right? So I don't look for anything for just people to really think about it and embrace it. And hopefully either people have thought about it before or they leave and think about, hey, I want to think about this some more. So look, your legacy is always what you want it to be. Always keep striving forward. You are well on your way to accomplishing that. So I want to thank you for hanging out today, sipping a little wine, having a little conversation.
This was fun. Thanks for having me. And I hope the audience got something from anything I had to say.
They most definitely did. So with that, we're going to sign off. Y'all know what it is. To the next cocktail, to the next conversation. Y'all stay safe.